Yikes. Thanks, Erica, for unmuting me. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Each and every one of our souls is welcome here. So let's just take a breath and take in the joy of that song and the joy of that message. And know that as always, in each and every moment, we are surrounded by that one essence, that one presence, which is only love. We call it by many other names. We call it God, we call it spirit, we call it the divine intelligence, wisdom, Mother Earth, Father Spirit. But we know that by whatever name we call it and whatever quality we ascribe to it, it all comes back to love, because that is all there is. That is all there is. And I am so grateful to know that that means that each and every one of us is love on legs, as I like to say sometimes. We are here to be the manifestation, the demonstration, the illumination of love on the planet. To be the manifestation and the illumination of that one spirit, of that divine source, of that wellspring of good, which just springs up from the center of our being, flowing through and out into life, making this world a better place. And so I affirm this morning that each one of us takes in something from this service to realize, to internalize the absolute truth that we are love, that we are loved, that we are beloved. I know that the music is uplifting and inspiring and joyous and sacred and deep. And I know that Reverend Barb's message just hits right where we need it. She brings just her own wonderful brand of tenderness and truth to everything that she does, and that comes through this morning and touches lives and changes lives. Because I know that this teaching changes lives, and I know that it changes lives through her and through our musicians and through each and every person who has brought their beautiful mind and their hearts and their hands to creating this service for us today. And so with joy in my heart, I am joyed to know that I can release this word and let it go, because it is made so right now. And together we affirm by saying, and so it is. Amen.
Whoop, there we go. This song is called Return to Love. It's by Kit Holmes. Everybody's got a story. I know I've got mine. All our pain and all our glory. All the masks we hide behind. I'm standing here in wonder at my faith in things unseen. Holding back or diving under. There is no in-between. Everything's a lesson. Everyone's a mirror. No matter where I am, heart is open and my mind is clear, I know I can. Oh, return to love, return, return to love. Oh, return to love, return, return to love. I'm deconstructing my defenses, dismantling my pride, making peace and building fences with who I am inside. And when I let myself go deeper, love is closer than my breath, my master and my keeper are beating right here in my chest. Everything's a lesson, everyone's a mirror, no matter where I am. But when my heart is open and my mind is clear, I know I can. Oh, return to love, return, return to love. Oh, return to love, return, return to love. Everything's a lesson, everyone's a mirror, in everything I do. My heart is open, my mind is clear. Now I'm asking you to, oh, return to love, return, return to love. 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 Return, return to love. Return, return to love.
Love you, Jimmy. Oh, good morning, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day to you all. It's so good to be with you. So let's do that thing that we do and harmonize our hearts and our minds today by taking a deep breath and touching our hearts. And say with me out loud in your space: care, appreciation, gratitude, compassion. Care, appreciation, gratitude, compassion. Care, appreciation, gratitude, compassion. Care, appreciation, gratitude, compassion. Sometimes those 4 words carry me through the week in surprising ways. So it's an interesting day, Valentine's Day, to be handed a talk title about the infinite invisible. Especially as we're coming up on almost a year of this pandemic thing and everything that has gone along with it. Almost a year of a little too much togetherness for some of us, a little too much aloneness for others. There's kind of a bit of grief in the wind, I think, right now, isn't there? There's also some relief, a little more hope lately, and still, as I'm talking to people recently, it seems a little bit of restlessness. Some of that about it being winter, some about it being other things. It's calling into mind that phrase we've used before, divine discontent. And some of us have learned that, I think, through this, that there were parts of our lives that were not really working in balance. And we want to take some of what we have learned in this time, this year, and put it into a place that's more permanent, I think, in our life, before we're called back into something that used to be called normal, and some people wanting to return to that whatever normal was. And some of us actually aren't really sure yet what we want the other side to look like, except that we desperately want to hug the people that we love. And maybe just maybe we're not wanting to get stuffed back into the box that we were in before. There have been many things to love in this year, along with the hard things. There have been many things to love, and I don't want to put my head in the sand about any of it. I've noticed that, not so much here at NTNC because we know better, but I've noticed a little of what I call metaphysical malpractice out there in the world. And people who say that if you just have your spiritual practice or your faith, and that this is all good and it should somehow be easy. Some, people who are really unwilling to feel the feelings of it all and kind of want to spiritually wash over that with something. And in my book, that's just complete nonsense. And I hope that you don't let anyone do that to you either. Joel Goldsmith in The Art of Meditation wrote something really beautiful and profound. He said, in going within, we do not turn to our own spirituality or to our own goodness, or our own strength, or our own knowledge. We go within to unleash the infinite invisible. I love this. I often, I want to have it all figured out in my own mind. I want to have it all figured out in my own emotional set, in my own resilience, and all of those things. I'm a figure-it-outer person. And to set that aside for a moment and remember that there is this infinite presence, this infinite good, call it, or infinite wisdom that I can tap into. And we don't go in to pretend that something's not happening. People are sick, and people have died, and some people got well, and none of those results had anything to do with what they were thinking. All of it had to do with something called COVID-19. Our thinking did not make COVID. A virus did. Our thinking does not make cancer or diabetes or anything else. We have bodies and we have germs and we have cells that sometimes work and sometimes don't work. And that's just the way of things. And we'll get smarter and we'll get better and we'll get healthier and we'll get all of those things. We are all of those things all of the time in this evolution of consciousness that is always upward and outward. But it's not our fault when something happens. That's metaphysical malpractice. What we do have is the opportunity to increase our resilience to the up and down of it by letting go of the idea that we can outmuscle or outthink any of it, but that we can go within, tap into that something larger, and unleash that invisible power within us that lets us know not only that this too shall pass, which it will, but that life is always in an upward and outward evolution of consciousness and awareness. And 300 years from now, people will be looking back and they will say something got birthed from this that we are unable to see while we are in the midst of it. Our thinking will impact it in two ways, I think. First, at the science level, at the let's use our brains and make vaccines and get vaccines distributed and wear masks and do the things that need to be done to manage this thing. Second, it is our thinking that will keep us it'll keep us in a mindset of forward movement in our own lives. We can feel our feelings, but not get crushed by them. We can feel our discontent and ask maybe, what is that? I look at it as, I call discontent divine discontent. I mentioned that earlier. We've talked about this before in our history. I look at it as signal flare, It's like the little signal flare that goes off right in your gut that's like, There's something that wants to be changed here. There's a question, not a judgment, and certainly not a beat on yourself, but a question, and good questions. What is it that I want to be making a change in my life that puts us in right living with our own soul? And I think that's kind of the question to contemplate right now. What is right living in our own soul? And what is the discontent here to teach us or lead us to, if you're experiencing any of that? And if you're not, I promise there's still things in here for you today. If you are, I hope there are things in here for you too. Last summer or fall, we did a road trip, trying to skip COVID but still leave home for a little bit. We did a little road trip, and we listened to a book on tape by Glennon Doyle, and so I heard this story, and the story just keeps coming back to me, and I know some of you have read it or heard it before, and I know that there will be something in it for you as well today too. But she writes about a vacation that she and her wife went on with their 2 daughters, and they went to a zoo. And she says as they were walking the grounds of the zoo, they see the sign for the park's big thing is the cheetah run. And so she said they head over there, that it's one of those places you got to pay a little extra to get into. So they pay the little extra, and they go looking for a good place with all the other families to scope it out and see what's going on. And they, find a good spot and start to watch. And the zookeeper comes out, in their little khaki vest and with a megaphone. And she's got a Labrador on a leash, a yellow lab. And Glenn is like, well, I don't know much about animals, but if she tries to convince my kids that this lab is a cheetah, I'm getting the cheetah run refund, right? But the zookeeper does the little thing that they do with kids, oh, do you think this is Tabitha the cheetah? And they're like, no. And she says, no, this is actually Minnie the lab, who is Tabitha's best friend. And then she goes on to tell them that they introduced them when Tabitha the cheetah was a baby, and they raised them together to help tame the cheetah. So whatever Minnie does, Tabitha wants to do. So then the zookeeper motions to a Jeep that's parked behind her, and there's a little pink stuffed bunny that's tied to the tailgate with a rope. And she talks about how Labradors like to run and chase things, and so that's what the Labrador has helped them teach the cheetah. And so they do this whole routine, right? You know how it is. The show must go on. They do the whole routine. She counts it down. She's going to open Tabitha's cage, and then she's going to take off. And she says, now, just, to distract Tabitha, because she is a cheetah, when she reaches the bunny, there's going to be a delicious steak waiting for her. So she uncovers Tabitha's cage, and she walks towards Minnie, and Minnie's just ready. She knows what's happening, right? She knows. And so the zookeeper signals to the Jeep, and it takes off, and she releases Minnie, and Minnie goes flying very happily after the rabbit. And the kids are all yelling and screaming and all that stuff. And then it's time for Tabitha's big moment, and they all count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the zookeeper pulls open the door, and the bunny takes off again, and Tabitha takes off after it. And cheetahs are like the fastest animals, so that, you can't even, she's a blur, you can barely see her, and she crosses that finish line within seconds. And the zookeeper whistles and throws her a steak, which Tabitha pins to the ground and starts to chew on. And Glennon says, I felt a little queasy. The taming of Tabitha felt just a little familiar. And she says she watched her gnawing on the steak, and she thought, day after day, this wild animal chases dirty pink bunnies down the well-worn, narrow path they cleared for her. Never looking left or right, never catching the blasted bunny, settling for a store-bought steak and the distracted approval of sweaty strangers. Obeying the zookeeper's every command, just like Minnie the lab she's been trained to believe she is, unaware that if she remembered her wildness just for a moment, she could tear those zookeepers to shreds. So when Tabitha finishes her steak, they open up the gate, they put her back in a little fenced area in a field, and she walks through, and the gate gets closed, and the zookeeper comes forward with her megaphone to answer questions. And one little girl says, isn't she sad? Doesn't she miss the wild? And the zookeeper goes into this whole story about how Tabitha was born there and she doesn't know any different. She's never seen the wild. This is a good life for her. It's much safer for her. It's much safer for her than it would be in the wild. So the zookeeper's like sharing facts about cheetahs that are born into captivity. And Glennon says her older daughter, Tish, nudges her and points over to Tabitha. And in the field, when she's away from everyone, she says her posture had changed. She had her head up high. She was stalking the periphery of the fence, tracing the boundaries of the yard that was created for her, back and forth, stopping to stare beyond the fence someplace, like she was remembering something. She says she looked regal and a little bit scary. And her daughter whispered to her mom, she turned wild again. So Glennon, she keeps her eyes on Tabitha, and she says she wanted to ask her what was happening inside her right now. And she says, I knew what she would tell me. She would say this. She would say, something's off about my life. I feel restless and frustrated. I have this hunch that everything was supposed to be more beautiful than this. I imagine fenceless, wide open savannas. I want to run and hunt and kill. I want to sleep under an ink black silent sky filled with stars. It's so real, I can taste it. And I thought, wow, what I might say, what you might say, what he might say is when I go into that quiet place of the infinite, when I know who I am and when I hear my soul calling, I imagine wide open spaces in my beingness. I want to run and play and be with my family. I want meaningful time with the things and people I care about. I want hugs and vacations and work that has meaning but doesn't take over my life. I want to feel joy and love and expansion and expression. But Tabitha, the cheetah, she would look back, and I want to say many of us who are relating to this would do this. We look back at the cage, the home we've known. We look at the smiling zookeepers, the bored spectators, and the panting, bouncing best friend that we have. And she'd say, I should be grateful. I have a good enough life. I am safe here. It's crazy to long for what doesn't even exist. And Glennon says, and I would say, Tabitha, you are actually not crazy. You are a goddamn cheetah. And I thought, wow, when we lean into our discontent, which leads us to our desired way of being, which is probably a way of joy and life expression and life expansion, when you lean into all of that, what calls you? What calls you, my friends? One of the things that I notice in the story of Tabitha the cheetah is that every single day, they have to re-show her how to be a lab. They have to help her practice how to not be her authentic self, her perfect, regal, wild self. And I thought, how much of my life, how much of our lives, how many of us do this where we practice not being our authentic self? Life is not a spectator sport. It requires our agreement and our participation. So greater life and greater expression also requires our agreement and our participation. So begin now to ask yourself, what brings you joy and inspires a feeling of possibility and energy? What makes you roar like a lion or run like a cheetah? Here's what I've noticed. When I lean into the discontent with good questions, What is this wanting to show me? And I begin to imagine the life that satisfies those questions. Something in the very core of my being begins to shift. Even in the imagining comes a more joyous, contented feeling. A path opens up eventually in your mind, and you get to choose. Go back this way, go this way, go forward this way, go forward this way, go forward this way. It's all going to be forward because there's no other way, but it's all a choice. But when we choose, well, no matter what we choose, the universe rearranges itself to support us. So if we desire to choose the thing that brings us more joy and more upliftment and more life, then all of the universe will begin to rearrange to match our thinking so that the universe can support the rearrangement of our actual life to support the life that is being called forth. I hope that wasn't a big, just giant circle. The universe will do everything it can to support the life that is being called forth. It will support its greatest expression, which is you. It all works together with us. I hope this makes sense. It all works together with us. Ernest Holmes advised us to prepare for our demonstration. What is the one thing that you can do today to prepare for your demonstration? Where do you need to create space in your thinking, in your beliefs, or your daily life to cultivate and nurture your awareness of the infinite invisible as your guide, your partner, and your beloved source? Find that one thing. Do it with love, intention, passion. It will guide you to your next and your next and your next steps every single time. And there will be a sense of freedom and aliveness and awareness even in the conversation. Bottom line, my beloveds, you are a cheetah. Go within to unleash the infinite invisible. Go within to unleash your very self. Really, what are you waiting for? Go for it. Arms of love all around every single one of you this Valentine's. May you feel deeply loved this day. Unleash the infinite invisible. Like right now, go within with me, if you would. In this moment, I recognize my heart tribe. I recognize that infinite, invisible presence moving in and through, and as each one of us, connecting us in this field of play we call New Thought, Northern Colorado, and beyond. There is this infinite field of prayer and play, and all things that are possible. And as I connect with that, and I know that I connect with each and every one of you within the sound of my voice, I know right now that we call forth compassion, grace, comfort for any and all who are feeling grief, aloneness, sadness, that we wrap the arms of love, absolutely the widest arms we possibly have. And I'm going to ask you right now to reach your hands out and imagine that we are touching hands across time and space and holding one another. And as we can create this container together, all things are possible within it. And so I know that for those who are listening to this and resonating with this discontent, that there is something being called forth within you that brings you joy and life and greater life, and that life is to be shared with this community, with our world, with the community at large, and it is so wanted. You are wanted in your greatest life expression. I know that this day there is a celebration of love and a celebration of life and a comfort and a love and a beingness, togetherness. It just settles within each of us, whether we are with someone or not. that love just settles into our bones in this moment. And I call that good. Just call it good. I give incredible thanks for this opportunity to be together, that we still have these opportunities to be together. I give thanks for the snow that is nurturing the ground here in Colorado, knowing that it is bringing forth greater life expression because that is the way of things. I give thanks for all of the support in this community, those who continue to open their hearts and their minds and their wallets and their love and their time to support this beautiful expression of life called NTNC. I give thanks for all that has gone before and all that will express itself next. And I ask you, my friends, to join me in this, leaving room for the universe to surprise and amaze us with its answer to our want and our desire and our prayer. Join me in saying, and so it is.